Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President. Magandang umaga po. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, we are here today in fulfillment of a constitutional duty to pass upon the extension of martial law in Mindanao. Narito tayo dahil ito ang sinasabi ng ating saligang batas. We are upholding and respecting the rule of law and the Constitution by convening today. Therefore, the question is the martial law extension consistent with the Constitution? Our acts must always be consistent with law and the Constitution. This is what distinguishes us from terrorists, criminals, or rebels, who we seek to defeat. For they have no regard for our Constitution or our laws. They have no respect for the rule of law. And I say, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, we cannot, in exercising these martial law powers or passing upon these martial law powers, go beyond what the Constitution dictates, what our laws prescribe. Otherwise, we will be in danger of becoming the monsters that we seek to defeat. Those who have no regard for law, order, or respect for the Constitution. My question, therefore, is, and this is directed to whoever would like to answer it among the panel. Number one, would you agree with us with this position that martial law is an extreme measure and must not be exercised whimsically or arbitrarily? Anyone may answer.
Of course, Mr. Senator, we agree.
Would you agree that it is an extraordinary measure resorted to only when the same is necessary?
Under the conditions set forth in the Constitution, yes, sir. Existence of rebellion and public safety requires it.
Yes. Section 18, Article 7 precisely provides when these powers can be exercised. And if we are to look at the long history of our challenges to national security and insurgency and rebellion, Mr. President, in the year 2000, March, MILF rebels numbering 700 attacked army camps, 9 army camps, raided Kauswagan Town Hall, held 400 civilians hostages, resulting in 36 people killed and 160,000 displaced persons. Martial law was not declared then. In 2001 November, in Sulu and Zamboanga, some 200 MNLF fighters launched mortar attacks on military camps in Sulu. Over 160 people were killed. Martial law was not declared. In 2008, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, North Cotabato, 1,500 MILF rebels, August 2008, led by Umbra Cato and Commander Bravo, occupied 20 barangays in several towns, burning homes, looting farms, displacing 280,000 people. At least 40 people were killed. Martial law was not declared. In 2012, if I'm not mistaken, the Sambo siege, Zamboanga siege, hundreds were displaced, 3 weeks of fighting with MNLF rebels. Martial law was not declared. In all instances, precisely because martial law is an extreme measure that cannot be imposed by whim and must be imposed strictly under the tenets of our Constitution. Which brings me to the question. Earlier, no more combat operations in Marawi. During the siege of Marawi, this Congress approved a martial law in Mindanao extended for 6 months or 5 months.
Just like to remind Secretary Pangilinan, please wind down. The time is up.
May I have a 2-minute extension? Thank you, Mr. President. How do we explain now that Marawi siege is over? I guess it was stressed earlier, but I'd like to press the point. We provided for a 6-month martial law in Mindanao while the fighting was taking place, while the siege was ongoing. Martial law was upheld by the Supreme Court in recognition precisely of this situation then. Today, there is no longer any siege. Today, no more combat operations in Marawi. Yes, there are operations elsewhere. But why are we asking for 1-year extension? Why not 6 months? Why 1 year? When martial law is an extraordinary measure as admitted by our resource persons. It is no longer extraordinary. It has become a norm. If we are to allow this 1-year extension, Mr. President, may we have a response, please?
Sir, we cannot, Mr. President, we cannot answer for the judgment call of the presidents at the time. We now have a different kind of president who has the political will to answer for the consequences of his decisions. We cannot make any comparison on the basis of the 2000, 2003, 2004 situation. What we have in hand is a 2017 situation.
Yes, we understand that, Mr. President.
Because of its very nature, the things that may be done by the President as Commander-in-Chief are likewise flexible. There could be orders pursuant to the declaration of martial law that may enable warrantless arrest and seizures, or ban public assemblies, or take over media. Hypothetically speaking only, Madam Senator. So what we're saying here is the exercise of this emergency power of martial law is a flexible concept and serves, in the words of the Supreme Court, serves as a warning to the people or to the citizenry that the President is exercising an extraordinary power with the assistance of the military, and that under pain of arrest and punishment, the citizenry are advised not to make it difficult for the government forces to ensure public safety. Now, as to the other...
the threshold of public safety.
Threshold of public safety. Again, Madam Senator, public safety is an abstract concept. It does not have a fixed standard. It is determined by actual circumstances on the ground and based on information available to the President. So it's really a personal judgment call on the part of the President to conclude what is the limit of public safety or needs of public safety that will require the exercise of his emergency powers. There is no fixed standard to determine public safety. It's all a matter of personal judgment on the part of the executive. And in our opinion, this is a prerogative that is exclusive to the chief executive.
In closing, Mr. President, may I just note that the good resource persons, I'm winding up, Mr. President, the good resource person's response is replete with bothering terms and concepts that should serve as warnings to us. Limitations and gaps are not a matter. Martial law is not a general question. It is a very practical and pragmatic question that has very concrete implications for us, again, as in our previous history. Martial law is not a flexible concept. It is very strictly defined and limited by our Constitution. I hope the references to warrantless arrests, banning of assemblies, taking over of media are not a precursor to what may lie ahead, as asked previously by our minority leader and the good representative Atienza. To
Thank
talk
you very
about,
much,
Mr. President, I am wrapping up in this last sentence. To talk about serving as warning to the people, that is contradictory to the so-called public safety that the actions of the executive are supposed to result in. And public safety itself is not an abstract concept. It is a very concrete good, public good that a government is supposed to deliver to us. Public safety is not flexible, it is not bereft of fixed standards, and most of all, Mr. President, all these issues of martial law, of public safety, these are not dependent on the personal judgment of any single person, not even our President, though he be our highest elected public official. This is why they are enshrined in the Constitution. They are not left to the personal whim or caprice of a single man, of a single leader, of a single authoritarian or dictator. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.